Hi friends, I'm Penny Hunt and this is Penny Heart to Heart. Today I just want to stop in and talk to you a little bit about my writing The Day They Closed Disneyland. I always pop in and talk to you about my writings and why I wrote them and some background about them and maybe give you just a little bit more insight than the writing itself. So as always, if you haven't read this writing, you can find it at the link that I include with this video so that you can go and read it. And always I have audio with it. So if you are a person who likes to listen instead of read or do both, it's there for your use. So follow the link to find that. So I started out this writing because I remember, and I know for all of us, it's been a very, very long year. And in fact, it's blurring over into year number 2, isn't it, for us? But I remember when this all started. And I remember when COVID was something we heard about in other countries. And I was kind of listening, but not really, kind of paying attention. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing cases in the United States. And we started seeing cases pop up in the Midwest, in the areas where I live. And then I started paying attention. But the tipping point for me was when something happened that I thought was so unusual that it caught my total attention. And I knew then that this was a big deal. And that was the day I was on my computer and looking at some news, and it flashed up that they were closing Disneyland. Now, I had lived in California a short time when I was a child, and I have been to Disneyland many times in my life. And I had a hard time remembering if they ever closed Disneyland. Well, I researched it a little bit since then, and I realized they have closed it 3 times for really national crisis type events. But I knew that if they were closing Disneyland, this was a big deal. And so I remember hearing that, and I was in disbelief. And my husband was out of town, and I picked up the phone and called him, and before he even could say hello to me, I said, "They're closing Disneyland." And that's a big deal. And so then I knew we better start paying attention, because then I knew it was coming into our country, it was moving across our country, and this was serious. That was, to me, the beginning of when things started shutting down. We all lived the same story. We know that state by state, city by city, restaurant by restaurant, things started closing down. And that was the beginning of our more than a year now of isolation and quarantine and words like that. Pivoting your business, that was a new word that came out. Things really changed in our lives. And so there was a lot of talk about it. We were living the same story, maybe in different ways, because depending on where you lived, how it affected your life and your family, I know that there was areas of this country that were heavily hit, way more than my area as far as cases and people passing from COVID. And certainly if you had someone in your family pass from COVID, you were in the same story, but you had a very different chapter that you were living. So I started thinking to myself about how that day changed everything for me and started the process of the world. And I started to think about how this story we were living in should never have been about politics. It should never have been about the validity of science. It really should have been about love. Do you love yourself enough to take care of your health and safety? Do you love your family and friends and community enough to care about their health and safety? And do you love and respect people enough to respect how they choose to do that? Because that became the battlegrounds, kind of, that who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong, what is right, what is wrong, what do we believe or not believe? But really, the bottom line should have been about love. It should have been about loving ourselves, loving our friends, our family, our community, our world enough to care about the safety and health of each other. And that was what I think we missed in a big way about this. I remember when it started, I wrote, I think it was the What If blog. It's called What If, and if you search that on my website, you'll find it. And I think I made a comment in that one that said the biggest lessons are learned in the most difficult of times. And I think that has been true of our last year and the story that we've all lived in. Yes, we maybe had different chapters. We may be in a different space in the book. We maybe felt like we had a different version of the book than others, but we were living the same story this last year and 2 months about of how long it's been. But I really do think it should have been about love. And I think we should realize that we can all be in the same story. We can all be interpreting it in a different way. We can all be in a different chapter, in a different space in the story, but we all are in the same story. And we should love each other enough, love ourselves enough to care about the health and safety of everyone. So that's why I wrote it, because I really did think that for me, Disneyland was the eye-opener, the aha moment that I thought, oh my gosh, we are headed for something important. We are headed for something that is going to be of a magnitude I don't think we realized in the beginning. The good news is, I think we have been given now vaccinations and hope. However you feel about your story, we have been given hope that we're coming to maybe a safety zone of this, maybe not the end yet, but we can see that it's getting better. People are starting to come out of their houses, and lines are forming in airports, and restaurants are gathering more people. And so we are seeing hope. And the good news is that later this week, Disneyland is opening. It was closed by the time it opens later this week, 413 days. That's a long time. It's a long time for Disneyland. It's a long time for us. And so I think that hopefully, hope is filling your hearts, filling your lives. Things are starting to feel a little safer. I remember after I got my first vaccination, I was hopeful, but still very cautious, not sure. I really did tuck in my home for a very long time. After the second vaccination, I felt like I was a little more open. You see, I'm not somebody who jumps in a cold pool of cold water. I am a tiptoer. I tiptoe in the water and I let it come up over my body until my body acclimates to the different temperature. And that's kind of how I've been with this. I have had both my vaccinations. I am feeling more comfortable and confident. I feel like I'm about waist deep in the water. I'm not ready to go out and do anything crazy, and I'm enjoying hugging my grandkids again and things like that. Again, we're all living the same story. We may be in a different spot. Maybe some of you haven't gotten to that point yet. Maybe some of you have been working the whole time, and so you feel like you've been in this cold water the whole time. But I think hope is coming, and Disneyland opens again. So I invite you to read this writing. The link, again, is with this video, and there's audio with it. If you haven't read it, I invite you to read it and share with me how you feel about it. What was your tipping point when you realized this was going to be a big deal? That we were headed for maybe not just a couple weeks, but who could have ever known it was going to be over a year? But what was your tipping point when you realized this was serious? So I invite you to read that. I thank you for your time. I know it takes a few minutes to listen to me and watch these quick little videos. I wish you a grand day. I'm Pennie Hunt, and thanks for watching.